Okay, does it say that it's a recording? Yeah. Okay,
Yep,
cool,
you're
cool,
good.
cool. Okay, perfect. So we have some quizzes because at the end of this workshop, I'll be able to give you your own certification. Woo woo. It'll be by Creditly. You'll be able to flaunt it in front of your LinkedIn buddies and things like that. This is always a workshop to help you understand the foundational and practical skills of media planning. So make sure to utilize the comments for your questions. And again, raise your hand is cool. Like if we can wait for the question, we'll answer right then and there. And then because I'm a big fan of memes, you got some memes in here. Chelsea told me a couple of weeks ago when we were bringing things together, and she was like, "You, I see that you've added your little touch, your little flavor," because I literally went into some of those slides and added my memes because that's who I am. Some QR codes, as always, you'll have some cheat sheets, and I have a special announcement at the end, so stay tuned. And then if you stay tuned till the end, you'll get to have some goodies from InfoLinks. I don't know if you can see the hint on the slide, but that will be emailed, like the way to receive it, obviously, like I'm not gonna ask you for your address here, but I'll email you in the next day with a link where you'll be able to request it and it'll be sent to you. And then it's a gift. But why not? And I have one of those and they're pretty good. So I am Ellen Parker. I started working in the programmatic industry back in 2013, 13, I don't know, something like that. So you do the math. It's been a minute. One of the reasons why I'm working for myself today is because I see that there is a lack of education in this industry that is agnostic. Let me hear you out. What I mean by that is that the only way to learn about programmatic is one, if you've started in programmatic, like if you work in programmatic, or if you work with a platform that could offer you um work, that can offer you um the education, and we have some great education out there, but I realized like first of all, I want to see more of people that look or sound like myself. I want to be able to learn from them, and I want to be able to ask all the questions in the world without being judged. And that was before the trend. We listen and we don't judge, okay? And so my superpower is that I am the happiest person you'll ever meet, and it is very contagious. I have boundless energy to share. If you ever are in a moment where you don't feel that the sun is getting to you, please call me. I promise you, I will remind you how amazing you are. I promise you, that's my superpower, and I stand by it. And now I want to introduce Chelsea, who's fell into my life, not fell. She's risen into my life like at the perfect time. She's absolutely outstanding. We've done a preview podcast together. If you haven't heard it, I'm pretty sure it's episode 168, but you'll get to see like how dope she is today. So Chelsea, I'd love for you to maybe give us a little bit about yourself, like a quick intro before we actually dive into the sexiness of today.
Thank you, Ellen. Hello, everyone. It's so lovely to meet you all. Chelsea Walsh, Senior Digital Marketer. I've been doing this for 13 years, not too long, not too short. It feels like the time has flown by some days. Some days it feels like I've been doing it forever. Primarily focused on omni-channel strategies for enterprise businesses. I've worked with some of the largest businesses you can think of: Michael's,
Yeah.
Party City, Spirit Airlines, Dollar Tree, Family Dollar, TIAA, but also small mom and pop shops in South Florida, Broward College. So it really spans a lot of industries. I think a ton of people are always like, well, what industry do you work in? I've touched everything, literally pest control to footwear, every single thing that you can think of. Really looking at omni-channel strategy and media planning to increase overall business growth, whether e-com, which is usually my primary, or brick and mortar. So it's lovely to meet you all. I'm passionate about inclusive innovation. It's something that Ellen said earlier really resonated with me, and wanting to see more women like myself in this space. I don't think we're as prevalent as we can be, but this is why Ellen and I are here, and why some of you on the call are here, to be able to continue building this wonderful growth and momentum that we have already started. My superpower, bringing people together. I throw not only the best parties, but sometimes the best idea labs. It just depends on how I'm feeling any given weekend.
Mhm.
But I love bringing people together. I love fostering ideas between great minds. So it's lovely to meet you all, and I'm excited for the workshop.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And again, when you see y'all see the QR codes, please scan it. Please connect with her on LinkedIn if you have not connected with me on LinkedIn yet. I think it's super, super, super important that you stay connected. Like you're more likely to be. I think the quote is you're 30% more likely to be successful, even if you're proximity of successful people. And sometimes it is following and curating your feed with the right people that encourage you, people you can learn from, people that make you feel uncomfortable in a way that, man, I know I can push myself and this is inspiring. Okay, so follow us on those social media. So today's session is all about the solid foundation in media planning. I know some of y'all are probably thinking, oh well, I'm not a planner, I'm just here to da da da. At some point in our career we have indirectly been involved in building, creating, adjusting a strategy or a media plan. We may not have been, closely involved with how to put it in that Excel sheet that we see, the media plan. But trust me, you have been involved at the strategy level. And honestly, you need to know this process in order to be great, because ain't nobody got time to be good. Good is for the birds. We are meant to be great, and I stand by that. So at the end of this workshop, I know you have the understanding of the foundation. You'll understand what right KPI, what the right channel. You'll understand what we call funnel and not. And then I pray and hope that you will be leaving with a little bit more confidence, a little bit more zhuzh to continue having that conversation internally. And so why media planning matters for its targeted precision and measurable ROI. But I'm going to let um, Chelsea tell us a little bit more about why it really matters. Like, tell us.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the things I found from working with some of the biggest brands in the industry is like the idea to start is always great. When it comes down to the
Mm.
measurement of the plan, that's what's usually lacking. I've heard some of the largest brands say, well, I just want to be on the Super Bowl and I just want to see my ads on Google every time I search for
Yep.
something. And while that is great from a generalized perspective, it doesn't truly take into account all that goes into it from the baseline. And really,
Mm.
that's in target precision and measurement. And who you're targeting, when you're targeting them, is the most important. And that is really
Yeah.
why media planning matters. Finding the right people at the right time, using the right mediums is the name of the game. And that's what we're going to show you today, as well as how to measure how all of that contributes to your bottom line using different KPIs along areas of the funnel.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And so, all right, so pull out your phone. And then based on what you only heard in the last 3 minutes, I want to hear about your biggest blind spot. And what I mean by that is that I want to hear um what are the challenges you're going through? So here's the deal. When you are scanning this QR code, or you can go to the poll website right here, I need you to get creative. So remember how you were team summer or team winter? I need you to add that in your name, and your first name. For Peggy, it will be Winter Peggy. For Ellen, myself, it will be Summer Ellen. And so make sure you be really, really creative in how you name it, because I want to hear from you. In a hot second, I'm gonna switch from sharing this screen to coming to sharing the other screen. Okay, present. All right. So let me go ahead and all right, does everybody has um, what's this one? Okay, I think you see each other here, but let me just. All right, so everybody has it. So tell me your biggest blind spot. Again, this is you can submit multiple words, but oh wow, that's y'all been submitting, huh? Reach. Okay, reach is one of the biggest thing. What's your take on that? Oh wait, I'm sorry. Now you can see my screen. You good? Sorry, I paused it so I can flip around. But wow, you guys have pretty much all said reach. That's pretty interesting. And then media, the big picture. Well, you came to the right place if you want to understand the big picture about media planning. Um, so I think there's been submission. Some people have submitted multiple words into one, so it's like breaking out, and I can't I can't figure it out. Like actualized, I'm thinking it's actualized. Wow, creating creative transparency, emotions. Okay, um, audience channels. Okay, all right. What do you think about this, Chelsea?
I'm loving to see all of the things that we're going to touch on, to be
Yeah.
honest. Audience, revenue, channels, all of those things we're going to touch on in sections 1 and 2. So I think this is really exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm gonna flip it over to you, or is it still me?
It's me. I got it. All right, Ellen, I'm going to depend on you to monitor the chat since
I
I'll
got
be
you, fam.
sharing. And
Mhm.
let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to start by talking about media strategy today in our first section, and then we'll discuss data-driven planning in section number 2, and budgeting and allocation in section number 3. So let's go ahead and start with media strategy. So, what is actually media strategy and why is it important for our campaigns? A successful programmatic campaign launch requires seamless collaboration between multiple teams. I have been on a lot of those teams, which we'll show you in just one slide what that looks like. But each of those teams play a crucial role in ensuring that there's accurate setup, optimization, and performance tracking, right? What does that look like for a typical media agency campaign launch process? It usually starts with the brief. As you can see here on the bottom, you can see that there are multiple teams involved even from the brief process, which is usually the media planning team and the customer success team. When I
Mm-hmm.
started my career, I was solely on the media planning team. So I really didn't see many of the processes that happened after the kickoff call with the client. That kind of just went to the trading team. And that's why people like Ellen and yourselves who are programmatic traders are so important, because beyond this point here, we media planning don't see anything else,
Yeah,
but it
yeah,
goes to you traders, which
yeah.
means that whatever we do from the media planning side has to be so seamless and trackable that when we hand it off to traders, it's actually a good and executed plan based on the goals that we want to drive for the business. Because if we don't
That's a
get the first
fact.
half right, the traders are not going to be set up for success. And this is why media planning is important, because we need to make sure that the second half of the journey is set up for success based on our campaign goals.
Yeah, and
So
if sorry to cut you off, if I may add here about the whole role is that I like Chelsea mentioned, I was predominantly on the trader side and then led the team and then on the analytics side. But how many times have I not blamed? Why would a planner add this to the plan? I don't understand. Why don't we have more budget in programmatic? Why search has 75%? We got the trickles or like the dust. But like taking time to understand what a planner has to go through to get to that media plan really helped me give one empathy, because shucks, y'all, we all in the same industry. We know how tough it can be and how we just know sometimes it be hard, but it helped me develop empathy towards other people on my team. It helped me understand like, oh shucks, actually there's a little bit more than just this percentage or this dust of budget coming to programmatic makes sense based on this, you know what I mean? So I strongly recommend that. Oh wait, hold on. I strongly recommend that you really are able to get that out based like I did, okay? So go ahead. Sorry, I just had to add that. Like
no
I know
worries.
I've
No,
been,
that's a great point, and I'm happy you
yeah.
said
Oh shucks. Wait, Chelsea, I'm sorry.
it's okay.
There
I'm
you go. Okay.
happy. I was just going to say I'm happy you said that you have empathy for us, because trust me, the
Yeah.
first portion, the first portion is always so cumbersome. A lot of clients hand over a brief that doesn't have enough information, and then we have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, as we have empathy for you all as traders who end up getting a plan that doesn't always make sense.
Hmm.
So what's the actual definition of media planning? It's a strategic multi-step process designed to identify and reach a target audience with the most effective and efficient channels. Keep that in mind. Has to be effective, has to be efficient. to achieve specific marketing objectives. Today, we're going to walk through what we're going to build up for our example brand FitFlow. It's a fitness and nutrition app that transforms fitness from feeling overwhelming to a full wellness lifestyle. So I figured summer is 3 months away. We're probably, for those that love summer, we're probably all getting ready to put our bathing suits on. So I was like, let's talk about fitness. So our example brand for this workshop will be FitFlow, and we'll talk about how we're going to build a media plan for FitFlow and all the steps that go into that in the back end. That multi-step process that I was talking about, I honestly could break this process down on screen to 30 steps, but for the sake of this workshop, I wanted to consolidate it to the top 7 in terms of what goes into media planning on the back end. In this first section, we're primarily going to focus on the objective, audience, and channels, and how that then leads into using data and KPIs to determine where the budget is going to be allocated, and ultimately in the buying process that Ellen will go into in the last part of the slide. Let's start with the objective. The objective is this initial phase, the very, very first phase, where you take an analysis of the market, the business, competitors, target audience, and really try to set a clear and measurable marketing objective, such as increasing brand awareness, driving sales, or generating leads, dependent on the client or dependent on the brand. With any objective, you have to follow the SMART framework. SMART means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Why is this so important? A ton of clients, brands, will just say, we want to increase traffic. Increase traffic by how much? Based on what time period? In what timing? Using how many dollars? To who? We have to make sure that it's measurable. We have to make sure that it's specific, and it has to make sense. Increasing traffic by 30%, let's say in 2 weeks, isn't feasible. So what do I mean by that for the sake of our example, right? We want to increase traffic to the FitFlow website by 10% year over year in Q2. That's going to be the objective that we're working around today. As you can see, it's specific, increase traffic to site. It's measurable by 10%. It's achievable. 10% is a pretty good goal year over year to be able to achieve with our media plan. It's relevant based on the growth that FitFlow is trying to achieve, and it's time bound. Q2 specifically is when we're trying to achieve the 10% increase to site. Looking at audience, now we're taking a look at what are the profiles of the target audience created, including demographics, psychographics, behaviors, media consumption habits, and really understanding where do we need to target these people to be able to make sure that they are not only getting the most of the brand when we share our ads, but also increasing how much they engage with the brands to ultimately convert. I always say we should ask a few very general questions that will guide how you think about your audience. How old is your target consumer? What's the gender split? What's the percentage between male versus female? Is it 50-50 or is it 20-80, let's say? What's their household income? Household income is often overlooked, but it is so extremely important. I've seen brands that have a product where the average order value, let's say, is $1,000 for one pair of pants. The average American cannot afford a pair of pants for $1,000, but then they're targeting the average American. It's so important to really break down how much is your product, what's the average order value, and what's the household income of the audience that you are trying to target, so that you're targeting people who can actually afford your service or your product.
Can I ask a question
Yeah,
here too? Is that
of course.
I was in several meetings with clients and client facing teams where they would really tell us, oh, don't bring this up because it doesn't matter. Like something as simple as a household income. Like if you're in the situation where it's an important thing to bring up, even if it sounds so simple, like what are
Yeah.
your take? How would you address that, Chelsea?
Every time I get a client question, whether the one that you just asked or any client question, my first order of business is provide the data. So using FitFlow as an example, we know
That's
that
good.
the average person that signs up for a gym membership is usually either in December when they're going into the next year for New Year's resolutions and they're signing up for a membership because they want to make sure that they're getting their body together in the new year. And they're usually willing to pay between $35 to $50, let's say, for a gym membership. That household income might seem like, okay, average American household is at about $48,000. They can definitely afford that. That's not always the case, right? Because people have children, people have responsibilities, bills, whatever might have you, student loans. whatever might have you. It's important to break down the actual demographic then that can afford your service, and I show that. So for instance, going back to your question, I would show the data to show, okay, the average American makes $48,000 in their household. This is about 35% of Americans. $120,000 and up, this is about 10% of Americans. And then when we look at the larger bulk, which is usually about $75,000, let's say for this specific brand, that would be about 50%. When you show that to a client in that breakdown, then they can start to understand what's actually wasted dollars, because you might not want to target the super high household income for a brand like this, not because they can't afford it, but because their priorities are probably in a different place. And it just makes your dollars work so much harder for you and more efficiently when you're talking to the right person that can actually afford it, versus just doing a spray and pray method where you're like, I want to target everyone possible. You have to really ask yourself, like, is my brand affordable? Who can afford it? If everyone can afford it, great. But do I want to focus on a specific segment of people that I know is going to be willing to spend dollars on this product? I see a few questions in the chat. One from Brian, I want to answer that. Would love to know your thoughts on utilizing AI like ChatGPT to help with planning. Great, great question. I love everything AI. My house is a complete smart house. People are like, but what about privacy concerns? Too late. Government knows everything. The minute you signed up for Facebook, they sold our data. Hate to say it, it's the truth. I've been doing this long enough to know
Lord,
it. Use
Lord.
automation tools to your advantage. If you type in ChatGPT or Gemini right now, hey, build me a media plan that takes into consideration the household income for this specific product at this price point in AOV, they will spit out an entire media plan. At least that's good enough for you to get started. Obviously, it's on you to then take that media plan and adjust it as you see fit for your client or for your brand. But I am always, always, always going to encourage you and anyone really to utilize the automation tools that we have. It makes a
Mhm.
lot of the beginning portion of the process so much easier. Sometimes you just have all these thoughts in your mind and you can't think, and you see how much easier it becomes to just have that broken down in a quick outline for you. And then you take that and move forward. Niles, I see you raised a hand. Go for it.
Uh, would it be best, because I guess I'm just coming from the programmatic side of working at a couple of agencies, is educating the client as you already portrayed, but just asking them like, hey, let's get away from the business aspect and all these other acronyms and developing a sense of behavioral analysis and how it resonates with a user. And I guess I've always had more success of like saying, what did you do today, for example, in terms of getting from work, I'm getting from home to work. And I even brought together strategies like weather targeting. I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
so based upon when it rains or when it snows or when it's bright and
Mm.
sunny, it changes your clothes, it changes your mood, it changes the type of food or services that you use for transportation. So it's like looking at that other element of whenever you have a product or something you're trying to do market for media planning, how does it relate to your everyday aspect of life? And then
Yep.
asking the client, how does it do that? And then we can then put targeting parameters behind that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point and a great way to get your client to sometimes step away from the spreadsheet and to just put themselves in the shoes of the consumer and be
Mm.
able to at least add that personality element and relatability element to get them to understand where you're trying to go. Absolutely do that, in addition to also showing the data, because what ends up happening is when you start to actually break down the media plan, you can map back to the data segments that you provided to them on how you're going to spend. But I think your point is a super great point. Use that, use the relatability that you have to be able to get your client to understand why we're thinking about something and what the behavioral aspect is behind consumers, which is also important for the audience segments that we're talking about. And there's a slide that I'm going to go into on the tools that you can use to find the psychographics and behavioral elements behind audiences as well. So that's a great point, Niles. I encourage you to do that in addition to the data. Personality and day-to-day relatability absolutely matters. So great point. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce you to Cole. He is our example consumer for FitFlow. Primary age 25 to 34. The overall audience is 18 to 44, but we know 25 to 34 is going to be the bulk of our media plan. For a gender split, it's male to female, male 52%, female 48%. Not because I don't feel like I work out as much as Cole, but he has really broad shoulders, so I feel like more men are going to be using that. Average household income at 75,000 for the year. The media that Cole consumes the most is social media, streaming, and YouTube. Trusted sources, family, friends, and influencers. Influencers is something that we don't talk about enough. Influencers are hard to measure, and we're not going to be covering that today, but it's something that I will touch on and how to include it in the plan by using a proxy. And then the content that Cole interacts with mostly are video and then action and value-based assets. So let's keep going. Let's move into our channel. So a channel is basically any medium that you are going to be advertising content to your audience. When looking at these mediums by different areas of the funnel, for the sake of our example, in the awareness portion of the funnel, we're going to be activating FitFlow ads on TikTok and YouTube. For consideration on Meta and Reddit. If you all didn't know, you can run ads on Reddit, and it actually has a much higher conversion rate than people assume, and adds that personal and relatability element that Niles mentioned. And conversion will be running through Google Ads. As you can see here, AdLib is at every portion of the funnel here. And you're probably asking, well, why are we including that? Because you can actually buy all of these that we mentioned through AdLib as well at different portions of the funnel. So you can buy through AdLib for awareness, consideration, and conversion. Specifically YouTube, display, audio, connected TV, OTT can all be bought programmatically via DSPs like AdLib. So we're just putting that in there to say, well, some of these you might think that you have to manually go into Google and buy a YouTube ad. You don't. You can actually buy that through AdLib.
And I agree. It's like, and that's one of our fights, right? As programmatic ninjas, is that why can we not have more budget? Because we can literally serve within all this funnel and make sure that we're able to measure beyond just the wall garden that offers, or like the social media or the YouTube. But ideally, is like, you have to get it back, and Chelsea said it so right. It's like, you got to get it back to who we intentionally doing this for, which is our brands. And then the brands have a consumer, the brands has a client, the brand has a I don't know, has a customer. And so back to that customer behavior is where we should, is where we should always keep in the forefront. And that's how we kind of allocate, right? And that's leads into my next question to you, Chelsea. What are some of those tools that you can recommend to indeed, oh, there it is, tell me about those audience data tools?
Yeah, of course. So everyone always asks, like, well, outside of like the conversation that Niles would have with a client, where would I actually find audience data? There are paid resources, and then there are other resources that I recommend that you can find that are usually free. I only say usually because oftentimes you get on there and then within 10 minutes of searching, they're like, hey, sign up for our free XYZ, and then it's not actually free. So I wanted to make sure that I delineated what's paid versus free. So paid resources, you can use Resonate, Analytics IQ, 6 Sense, MRI Simmons, that tells you all about an audience, like when's the last time that they signed up for a gym membership in the last 12 months? How frequently do they work out? What do they think about working out? What friends do they normally keep around them? And what are their thought processes about fitness, nature, living green, using actual statistics based on survey data that they're using to audiences in these segments. The usually free side of things, I love Statista. It just normally takes survey data from the census, actually, to be able to spit out what the actual audience segments are across industries. There's Fortune Business Insights, there's IBIS World, and there's also Media Radar. Again, these are usually free, but don't be surprised if by the time you start scrolling like a couple pages down, you're like, hey, pay for this. But oftentimes, if you just search Google for what you're looking for, like fitness statistics in the United States 2025, you can see that these usually free resources will also pop up, and you can find a lot of the information that you need on your audience.
And I would say I've used MRI Simmons before. And MRI Simmons is not free. It's usually enterprise, yes. But I'm sure we can, if you're a smaller business, or if you you are on a independent agency side, I'm sure you can come up with a pricing for them and negotiate. But the reason why I like MRI Simmons is because you are able, like she said, to do the research based on the media consumption. Like if you put small business owner that owns restaurant that are more likely to be in New Mexico and that are more likely to be second generation, let's say immigrants or third generation immigrants, like it'll tell you like, oh, most of those consume 30% of Spotify, and they're more likely to convert after that, or it'll give you like percentage of consumption, and that's how you lead into the channel thing that what Chelsea was talking about earlier, and what we're going to talk about after this recap in section 2.
Yep. And I also saw that there was a comment in the chat. If you use DV360, there's a reach tool that you can see the possible reach population. I'm so happy you mentioned that, because we're going to talk about that in
Yeah.
section 3 and how to utilize those tools to be able to forecast their reach and impressions from the media plan. Niles, I will go to you before we go into section recap.
I always have a lot on my mind. Yeah, so
It's
people will know.
okay. This is what we
You're
this is what we
safe and welcome.
need. Yeah.
I love this. I guess I always try to say is get resources from the client first. So with audiences, I try to ask the client, hey, do you have your own first party or CRM data?
Hold that
Because
thought.
okay, never mind.
Hold that thought.
I'll shut up.
You must have saw the deck. Hold that thought. I promise you we're going to get to different data types.
Not yet. You're ahead of the game.
You're ahead of the game, but we're going to get to that in section 2. So thank you for bringing that up. All right, quick recap on section 1. Media planning is a strategic, multi-step process designed to identify and reach a target audience with the most effective and efficient channels. Again, that's the most important part. Has to be effective, has to be efficient to achieve whatever marketing objective that you set with the client or for the business. What does this mean? A well-defined media strategy acts as the roadmap for your campaign, ensuring that all of your efforts are aligned and are focused. The foundation starts with setting a clear objective using the SMART framework, defining your audience and selecting your channels. Objective, define what you want to achieve. Audience, define who your audience is. And channels, define where you will engage this audience. Next, we're going to get into data-driven media planning in section 2. But before that, I want to see if you guys were paying attention. Quick pop quiz. Go back to the screen, the QR code that we initially showed you. If you joined late, please scan this QR code. It will bring up pollf.com where you can answer the quiz question.
Yes. And as I mentioned, it's the same as before. So as soon as you're ready, let me know. The QR code is on the top right here. Let me make sure I've activated it for you. Okay, perfect. All right. Is everybody good? It should have asked the same thing in terms of, please give me your favorite. Is it summer? Is it winter? And then your first name. And this is the timed one. So now if everybody's ready. Okay, I don't hear anybody, or I don't see anybody say, no, I'm not
ready, but I don't count.
I'm ready.
I know the answer.
Okay, cool. This is competition. If you don't score well, you may have to be kicked out. No, I'm kidding. All right, first question. Why is media planning important for digital advertising? I'm trying to help you earn that badge that I've spent a lot of time designing. It's a really cool one. Here you go. Oh, shucks. Am I in the way? Jesus Lord.
It's not showing on screen, but it is showing in the app, so you're good.
Okay. All right, there's 35 of y'all. I know you guys should have answered this. You have 20 seconds. Not seeing the quiz. Oh boy. Oh, biscuit. All right, try to answer, trying to follow through here. Let me drop the link really quick, which I don't know what to do. Kenya, give me a second. I'll be. Oh, it's not going. Oh, there it is. All right, cool. It ensures efficiency. Oh, Hannah Fine, Summer Adriana. Look at y'all. Y'all are doing pretty good. Okay, but Hannah Fine is on the top. So she's leading right now. So everybody else, you have a chance. Summer Chelsea plus Claritin. Wow. What are the key elements of a media strategy? And whoever cannot see the what is this called? The QR code is on the top, or this is the link I will need you to have. Here you go. There you go. Quickly pick a name and tell us if you're team summer or team winter. So it will be Summer Ellen. All right. What are the key elements of a media strategy? You have 8 seconds, 7 seconds. Come on. Okay. I see y'all. All right. Okay. So goal settings. Okay. I made it a little easy for y'all, but don't worry. The second one will be Hannah is still on top. Summer Adriana is still on top. Bahar is still there. Farad, Steven, Team Summer. All right. So last question. What is the role of a well-defined media strategy in a campaign? Dun, 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 dun. BuzzFeed quizzes. Can tell you had some practice, Hannah. All right. So let's see what we got here. Okay. Good job, son. Maybe I made these way too easy. Next workshop, I'm gonna pump it up a little bit. Matter of fact, I'm gonna change some of the polls on the next one. But shout out to some. Oh, Summer Adriana took the lead. Let me take this screenshot so I can send you a little bit goodies. Everybody below Rory, you gotta go. Thank you for coming by. Oh, no, I'm kidding. You don't please don't go stay. All right. Back to you. Am I supposed to share this time?
Nope, it's still on me. All good.
All right.
But shout out to Summer Adriana. Awesome job. I intentionally got some wrong, of course, because I knew the answers. But good to see that you were paying attention. All right,
Yeah.
let's go into data-driven media planning.
Nice.
Quick check on where we are in the process. So we covered objective, audience, and channels. Now we're going to talk data and KPIs and how we analyze past performance, campaign performance, or industry benchmarks if we don't have past campaign performance to identify the optimal channels and targeting strategies within those channels, which would then lead you into budgeting and allocation. What did media planning look like before? So Owen, do you want to tell us what this screenshot is?
This is from way back when we didn't have no AI chat GPT to help us stay organized. And I literally had to write down the the customer journey, purchase journey for this fintech. And we had to put it in a illustration where it was like first you start with the business owners and then you'll hit them on the on streaming like a Netflix. Actually Netflix didn't have it, so it would have been like YouTube TV or NBCU, and then you retarget them with display and then you do search audio. Like it was literally me writing down to become that consumer. If I was this person, would I be here and there? What would be the most interested? And the things in green is like me trying to add my programmatic tactics. So like for display, it would be behavioral, it says behavioral, contextual, retargeting in general, search. And then it was me trying to do, and then there's different step that you saw. Anyway, so it was a whole lot. It took pretty
Yeah,
much
I
several
see that.
iteration. It
Yeah,
took
I'm
sprint.
happy that you thought it through though, and I'm hoping that you'll never have to do this again, and that you can just use the spreadsheet format to be able to do this for you. And plus,
Please,
there are media
please.
planning tools now that, of course, makes this automated. But you definitely were hands on boards at that time. It wasn't even hands on keyboards, so
Yes,
good for
please.
you. How would you explain it to Jade, your 5-year-old daughter?
Well, she is very, very, very smart, but most of us are not sometimes as smart as a 5-year-old, and I'm one of them. I'm guilty. And so I like to define things very, very down to her level so that we are all clear, because we love to throw acronyms and different definition in this industry, and we're proud of it. And it comes to find out, it's like everybody uses it first interchangeably and in different ways. So data-driven means just like making smart decision based on real facts. Okay, like for real facts instead of just guessing. So imagine you're picking the best ice cream flavor, and instead of just choosing randomly, you ask 5 of your trusted friends what are their favorite flavors, and 3 of them say, well, chocolate is. So now you know that chocolate is a good choice enough based on those real answers because you've picked it. And it's important because it helps us make better decisions that actually work. Just like knowing what ice cream flavor that most people like you can really understand how to select your data partners and how to select which channels that data or that audience is going to be the most responsive with.
Thank
Make
you.
sense?
You did perfect. Chocolate is also my favorite, so I do think it would have been the winner. But what does it actually mean from a definition perspective? The first and most important is it does require a reliance on evidence versus just gut feeling. The example that Ellen used just now is perfect. You are taking actual data points to make a decision versus just saying, I think most people would like chocolate. You're actually asking the questions to a group of people or using specific data points to determine what is the actual favorite in that example. It emphasizes using quantifiable and measurable information. I know we've talked a lot about measurement in the first half of this call, but it really is important to use evidence to be able to determine the data that goes into your media planning. Second, it's objective. You can't beat around the bush when it comes to data. It tells you plain and clear exactly how you need to plan, what is going to be driving traffic, revenue, et cetera, for you to know how to allocate budget across channels. And then it allows for learning and iteration. That's one of the most important things that I think a lot of brands and clients leave out. Some media plans seem to be set it and forget it, and there's not enough testing along the way. You have to be able to test so that you can have data to determine, should I be using a different ad format? Should I be allocating my dollars to a different channel? Are there maybe areas or time periods in the year where I should be increasing my spend to accommodate for holidays? Learning and iteration is extremely important, and you have to use the data at your fingertips to be able to determine how you can test and learn and then iterate on your media plan to continue growing and scaling. Let's talk about a data-driven decision tree though, because not a lot of clients have access to the data as they think that they normally do. Some clients, for instance, have never ran on TikTok before. So how would you actually know? So I wanted to break this down for you all in a decision tree. So looking at data access, right? Let's say you do have access to a client's data. You would either use the business source of truth, which can be Adobe, Google Analytics, a CRM, data clean rooms, or looking in their buying platforms, depending on what you're buying in your media plans. That could be Google Ads, Meta, Microsoft Ads, AdLib, etc. Let's say for whatever reason on the right side of the decision tree, you don't actually have access to the data. They've never ran these campaigns before. They're just brand new to the game. I always recommend using industry benchmarks. Industry benchmarks can be found across a lot of trusted sources. This includes WordStream, DataBox, etc. And today, for the sake of our example, because FitFlow is not a real brand, I actually use WordStream for most of the KPI estimates. So it can definitely be used as a trusted source if you don't have it. And then if you do have access to maybe a client of similar size in a similar industry, it doesn't have to be the same product, you can often use those directionally as well to compare how they're spending across different areas of the funnel. Should it be similar? How is their product being received by that specific audience to be able to guide where your media plan should go? Types of data to consider. Niles, this goes back to the point that you were bringing up. Thank you for bringing it up. I told you it was coming. There are different types of data, and it's important to understand the difference between owned CRM data, partner data, and market data. Zero-party data is information that customers share with a company or brand. That's like quizzes or surveys that a brand would ask you. So FitFlow would say, oh, you're signing up for our app. Tell us a bit more about you. And then you told them about them. You are 32, you work out here and there, you're interested in XYZ. That is zero-party data that they asked you for and that you provided to them. First-party data is information gathered from customers interacting with a company or brand, for instance, purchasing behavior. So now that I downloaded the FitFlow app, they realized that I also signed up for, let's say, their premium that allowed me to see my heart rate when I'm working out. And they can see that I'm interested in more than just the baseline service. Second-party data, this is where it gets a bit interesting. So if you're following the cookies, it's customer information collected by one company and then shared with another, for instance, like email subscriptions. One of the things that is interesting about second-party data is it's not always the first thought of where to get it, but it can actually be pretty accurate in telling you behaviors about your audience. Usually we try to stick to zero and first party data because it's the most accurate. That's what your customers are giving you. But second party data is also important, and I'll tell you why in just 1 second. Third party data is information collected from multiple sources and actually bought by companies. So for instance, LiveRamp will buy browser cookie information. You'll go to LiveRamp, buy data from LiveRamp for a specific audience about fitness, and that would be considered third party because you had to buy that data from LiveRamp. The biggest distinction between these four is that zero party, first party, and second party data are collected with consent. This is information that a company got consent to ask a customer for. And that way, you know that 9 out of 10 times it's fairly accurate. Third party data, not so sure. You're just buying it from a company and hoping that they collected that data with consent. But it's really a walled garden. You can't really know if that was collected with consent from their consumer base. Amanda, I see a question from you and then one from Andrew. I'm going to answer Amanda's first. How often is that used for third party just because the cookie was going away? That's a great question because cookies have been going away for the last 2 years and they're still here.
Excuse me, 4 years, as long as my daughter has been
4
alive.
years if we're counting when they very first started talking about it. And that's why I use the cookie because it's still here, Amanda, of course. But how often is third party used? I think third party, now's before you raise your hand. I think third party is often used when clients don't actually have access to zero or first party data and they need some sort of baseline to start their media plan from. Let's say, again, they're brand new to marketing, new to market, don't have anything. They're kind of guessing. Yes, they might have used Resonate to look at their audience pool, but they need more concrete evidence. That's when they go to buy third party data. We don't necessarily recommend buying third party data because, again, you don't know if it's collected with consent and how valuable it truly is, but companies do often buy third party data if they have no access to other sources. Another question that I saw come in, Andrew,
yep.
What were those places you mentioned you find industry benchmarks? We'll send this back out so that you have it, but, and I'll go back really quickly just so that you can see it because I know that that was a, really quickly, and take a quick screenshot. These are the paid and usually free resources to get your audience data. And there's obviously way more than this. And then outside of these, when it comes to actual benchmarking, WordStream, DataBox, and similar. So here in industry benchmarks.
Yeah, and you can also add the things like e-marketers. I know they're more on a general industry specific, but e-marketers always have like the percentage of people that, I don't know, does things. E-marketers, I think Statista was on there already, but those are nice to go. All right, now talk to us.
And then now
sorry.
let's go, and then there's another question from Brendan, and then we're going to keep moving forward because I want to make sure that I keep track of time.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'll be quick. Then I guess with first party, I've always preferred to reach out to the client with their CRM data because if you were able to take that first party data set, put it into DV360, Trade Desk, whatever, you can actually be able to develop them retargeting audiences off that, or even create a lookalike model audience. Or if you connect with someone like Oracle or Bombora or IOTA, they're able to take that first party data, ingest it onto their side, and they'll match it with the most comparable, similar third-party audiences. Then it could be ported to your DSP and then run against your campaign. And yes, you might pay a little more of a premium CPM for that, but then you're guaranteed more of a match rate for those audiences users to your KPI goals.
Yep, 100%. And that's really the way to go and why we prefer zero and first party data as well. Great point. Because even if you're paying a little bit more from an efficiency perspective, if the person that you're targeting is more valued, they're likely more probable to purchase anyway. So it's a higher lifetime value long term.
Right. And I will also say, Chelsea, before we move on to Brennan's question, is that Infolinks is one of our sponsors, and they do offer that as well, where they have first party based on their own publisher. And so I'll talk you through what that looks like and why it's so important. But ideally, like you want to understand what Niles is saying is that you can use your client's first party data, but there's other people's first party data, which is second party data, right? Like our thing, where you can maximize and be much more, I don't know, strategic Okay. And you know that this data is legit, it performs well because you're able to see that they have brand safety, you're able to see like it's transparent because you report on it directly. And so knowing those partners is really important. And we'll talk about this more in section 3.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you for
so
that. Brendan's
Brendan,
question, what are your thoughts about current contextual targeting and how can it be improved? In full honesty, like I actually think we are as close in contextual targeting as we can possibly get based on how much data we are getting from consumers as it stands right now. Obviously, it doesn't mean it's perfect, but if I was to use Resonate as an example, and I look at the data points that Resonate can spit out about audiences, how they think, who they interact with, how often they trust someone to make a decision, I think we're probably as close as we can get in today's world. In terms of how that data is being used, going back to Nels's point on matching, this is where it gets sticky, right? Because a lot of times when you then try to use those audiences or those data points, you upload it to, let's say, DV360, and then the match rate turns out to be like 38%, right? It's not always a perfect science, but I think that's why it's important to use multiple sources to make sure that you're cross-checking and triangulating some of the data points that you're using to make sure that you're developing the best possible plan for the audience that you're going to be engaging with. A very long way of saying, I think we've done as best as we can with the access to the data points that we have about audiences to be able to put together contextual targeting as best as we possibly could in today's world. I don't think it's perfect once you try to upload those things into a platform and try to make it seamless in your media plan. But I do think based on the access to tech that we have now and automation tools, we're doing the best with what we possibly could have access to in terms of information availability. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Mark, I saw your question. I promise I'll come back to it. But I want to make sure that we can get to section 3 because I know Ellen also has a lot to discuss when it comes to forecasting. So I'll run through these really quickly. They're very straightforward. You do want to make sure that you're aligning your media strategy with business goals. So that means mapping your business outcome to channel campaign objectives along the funnel. So we know for FitFlow, our objective is to increase traffic to site by 10% year over year in Q2. Knowing the channels that we selected along the funnel, for awareness, we're using TikTok and YouTube and programmatic contextual. The business outcome from TikTok would be to increase awareness. The business outcome from YouTube would be to increase site traffic because we're going to be using YouTube as a traffic driver. Looking at the programmatic tactics from that could also be digital out of home to drive awareness. And then it could be behavioral 2P or 3P contextual specifically to make sure that we're trying to drive qualified traffic to site. Again, we're going to be sending this deck over to you, so I won't touch on each individual row here, but very straightforward to say your business outcomes have to map back to the channels that you selected to be able to increase the overall, in this case, traffic to site by 10% and making sure that all of the selections that we made along the media plan will map back to that overall goal of increasing traffic by 10% year over year. When looking at what this means from a KPI perspective, not all channels are treated the same. I said this in our podcast leading up to this point in time, but you'll be surprised how many clients are just like, we're just going to judge the whole media plan on the same KPI. That is not necessarily the best way to go. I get it. Every company has a bottom line, and most of the time, the biggest thing is to look at returns. I totally understand that. But awareness driving channels are not going to drive revenue in the immediate. It just will not. I tell people all the time, stop thinking that TikTok is going to drive revenue. It does not. It is going to drive awareness and it's going to drive traffic. And it's important to look at the KPIs for each of these channels and make sure that you're judging them accordingly, because what ends up happening is if we're looking at TikTok or YouTube as a revenue driver and it's not immediately driving that revenue, then of course it can seem like, well, we just need to pull these channels from the plan, when really we should be looking at the key performance indicators, KPIs, accordingly based on their function. So for awareness driving tactics, that's usually CPMs, how much we're paying per 1,000 impressions, or click-through rate if we need to drive traffic. Consideration is usually very traffic focused, or in some cases like Google display or Meta, there can be multiple KPIs that we're looking at. If we're running conversion, for instance, in a Meta campaign, we might look at efficiency. So ROAS will be the KPI. And then of course, conversion is almost always going to be revenue or ROAS as the KPI, because that's where we know we're going to drive the bulk of our conversions and revenue.
That's right.
So What happens when you don't actually have a KPI that makes sense for a specific channel? So using like YouTube as an example that we know that we're going to be using for traffic and not revenue. And a client says, well, why should I activate on TikTok or YouTube if it's not going to drive me any revenue? This is when you have to use a proxy KPI. A proxy KPI is essentially an indirect measure used to estimate or infer the value of a desired outcome when that outcome is difficult or impossible to measure directly. So we know that TikTok and YouTube wouldn't necessarily drive revenue in the case of our media plan, for example, for FitFlow today, but our client is asking us to drive revenue long term. So we have to at least prove out the value for that. A proxy is essentially going to be used to measure what that would correlate with from traffic downward to be able to drive revenue. So let's say we're looking at YouTube as a potential revenue driver at an efficiency ROAS of $1.50. By the time we break down how much traffic do we drive, what's the general conversion rate, what's our AOV, and how does that get us to an estimated value for ROAS for that specific channel. It's really just a stand-in. It's not something that you can tie the channel to, but it allows you to directionally see how it contributes to a portion of the funnel if there's a KPI that cannot be used to measure it. The main difference here is proxy, it's not measuring the actual, it's measuring a correlation. It's a great indicator of progress. KPIs are direct and specifically measured. They can be aligned with strategic goals. That's the biggest difference there. Quick recap. Data-driven media planning allows us to make decisions based on the analysis and interpretation of data rather than relying on our gut or anecdotal evidence. It provides accuracy and measurable results. Utilize business or clients' sources of truth or platform data for your media plan, if possible. If unavailable, use trusted sources for industry benchmarks. There are 4 data types about your consumer to consider: zero party, first party, second party, and third party. Zero party, first party, and second party are collected with consent. Third party is not. Outcome mapping. Align your business outcomes to campaign objectives. KPIs need to directly correlate to business objectives and provide actionable insights. And a proxy, in the event you don't have a KPI that can measure something, you use it for an indirect measure to estimate or infer the value of a desired outcome. Next, we're going to get into budgeting and allocation. But before we do that, another pop quiz. Let's see who has been paying attention. Scan the QR code if you're just joining, or you can use the link here.
Also, tell me you're millennials without telling me you're millennials. Like, did anybody recognize this meme? If you did not,
yes,
you
obviously.
You can't come to the party next time if you're not.
Can't come to the party. Who didn't watch Hey Arnold?
Just so you know, it's the same QR code, it's the same link. So again, if you joined late, this is timed. I gave you a little bit more time, 30 seconds instead of 20 seconds. It's about 4 questions on what we just covered in data-driven planning. And if you scan the QR code or you join via the web, make sure you're letting me know your first name, so Ellen, and if you're team summer or team winter, and if you take clarity in or not. I'm kidding, whatever you want. All right, cool. First question, what does data-driven mean in media planning? All right, now, what does data-driven mean in media planning? You got 30 seconds. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, I see y'all. I see y'all. Definitely relying on your gut feelings and past experience should be. I'm kidding. All righty. Okay, let's see who got it. Good job. Nobody relies on their gut feeling, but whatever. All right, AJ Summer, Andres, Bahar, Farad, Hannah Fine is here. Who was it? Summer, Adriana had to hop off. All right, second question. When historical data is not available, what is a reliable alternative? No historical data, what would you do? What's a reliable alternative? You got 30 seconds and go, 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 go. Oops. 8 seconds. All right, let's see. We need a Jeopardy team playing. Okay, good job. Good job. Y'all are some smart people. All my questions are too easy. But all right, AJ, Andres, and Bahar, you guys are top 3. Let's see if anybody can still. When should a proxy KPI be used? And go. All right, 5 seconds. And then there's the one last. Boom. All right, let's see. When the primary KPI is difficult to measure directly, when this one was a little bit a tricky one. So, a good job. It's still pretty tricky. Oh, nice. Okay. I see you rising up. All right. Last question. Is this workshop helpful so far? Talk to me. You only have 3 answers, 30 seconds. Some may consider this a bonus question if you get it right. Is everybody answered? See, 30 seconds is pretty long, isn't it? All right, let's see. Boom, look at y'all. We get that bonus questions. AJ, Niles, and Steven Summer. You guys on the top 5. Hannah Fine is on the top 5 too. Okay, I took a screenshot for y'all so that we can keep it moving. I think the next one is me, isn't it?
Yes, let me run through the media plan and then
Oh,
I'm
yeah, that's right.
over
Yep, go
to
ahead.
you. Yep, no worries at all. Quick time check, folks. We have 20 minutes left. I'm going to run through the budgeting and allocation section since we're going to be sending over the deck and we want you to be able to see how the media plan is built, play around with it. And then Ellen will go into forecasting, RFPs, and some next steps. So we've already covered objective, audience, channels, data, and KPIs. Now we're going into section 3, budget and allocation. So the steps for budgeting and allocation. First, you start with the total budget. For FitFlow, we're working with $1 million for 2025. Then you look at, based on your goal, how you want to allocate it by different areas of the funnel. So we know that we need to drive traffic 10% year over year for Q2, specifically for FitFlow. Knowing that, their awareness can be at 15%. We're still going to run different tactics in the consideration area of the funnel, but really that 40% in consideration at 400K is really important because we know that those channels are going to be driving the traffic that we're trying to achieve. And then, of course, can't forget about revenue. 45% of the budget will be going to conversion. I did also list the platform allocations here, biggest call out being programmatic lookalikes at 10%, that should say not dollars, and Meta at 25%, and programmatic retargeting, because we want to make sure that we're getting people that visited the site and maybe didn't convert in real time at 15%. Our KPIs we're going to focus on are CPMs, CTR, and ROAS. And then Ellen will get into how to use a media forecast, also called a projection, to actually estimate the accuracy and delivery of our media plan. So let's start with the budget. Again, we have $1 million, broke it down based on the allocation that I just shared with you. Total consideration is going to be 400K. This is what's going to drive the bulk of our traffic. We still wanted to leave some for awareness because we need people to know about the brand, and FitFlow needs to be on the platforms that we know people engage with. And then, of course, leaving the bulk for programmatic web retargeting and Google search to drive that conversion. When we look at the breakdown of the budget, then we say, okay, how many impressions am I actually going to get? Now, this is a never before used brand, right? Again, it's an example brand. These CPMs are truly estimates. I use a combination of WordStream and different sources. Once you have the estimated impressions, then you can say, based on the benchmarks of CPCs, how many clicks would I actually get from this if I was trying to break down like the CPC to clicks? What does that mean? All benchmarks, again, these are not real numbers. But assuming that, for instance, TikTok CPC is going to be much higher than others because it's upper funnel at $3.40, we're expecting only about 14,000 clicks in comparison to something like a Google search, which is about $2.62 per click. We're expecting about 114,000 clicks from Google search. So you can see the differences in clicks and CPCs along different channels in the funnel. What is your strategy with budget breakout? Great question, Sarah. In this case, I start with the objective. So knowing that we want to drive 10% traffic year over year in Q2, I know that I need really intense traffic drivers that are also going to be efficient. I can't put all my dollars into TikTok because it costs me too much. It's $3.40 per click. That's just going to be way too high. But I can use Meta, where the CPCs are only at about $1.90 to drive a bulk of that traffic to site, where I also know that everyone uses Facebook and Instagram, right? There are a ton of fitness influencers on Instagram as well. So it's going to be a great place to drive that efficient traffic in addition to where we know the audience is engaging. And then ultimately, I always use a rule of thumb that conversion should be about 30 to 40% of the media plan, depending on what the returns have been for a client or for a business. At the end of the day, as important as awareness and consideration are, don't get me wrong, you have to drive demand to be able to drive conversion. You still need to keep the bottom line in mind. If you're not making money, you don't have money for marketing. So I always use a rule of thumb for conversion to be between 30 to 40% to start. I've seen clients that have conversion at 80% of their media plan, for example, but then their business never, ever grows because they're not actually driving traffic or getting new customers into their brand. The CPMs are estimated, Alan. The CPMs are all estimated. Every single number in here is estimated, by the way. This is just an example media plan. We utilize sources for the benchmark. So these are not real numbers of a CPM. I've seen a TikTok CPM, for example, be $2, depending on the campaign. But I've also seen a TikTok CPM be $14. So these are just average industry benchmarks that we utilize our resources to pull. And then finally, looking at the money. So once you break this down, you have your budget by channel. You take a look at the CPMs to get the impressions, CPCs to figure out, okay, how much would I actually pay per click? What does that mean in terms of driving the actual traffic? Based on that, you can find your click-through rates. You can also do that as an inverse. Like if you were looking at upper funnel only, that's usually not a pay-per-click platform, you would likely use CTR more than you would a CPC. But for the sake of this example, we know that TikTok and YouTube are probably going to drive some traffic. One thing to note, there's nothing here for conversion rate revenue or ROAS for upper funnel, because again, we're not using it to drive revenue. We're using it to drive awareness. So we're not going to judge it based on these KPIs. If we had to, that's when we would use a proxy, as I mentioned earlier, to estimate. But for the sake of this example, we're not. We are using conversion rates, though, for the other platforms that we know are going to be driving traffic and revenue. And using those benchmark conversion rates, we can start to see what the estimated revenue would be if someone were to convert at the average order value. In this case, for FitFlow, it's $350. So we know that every person that clicks on the website from a programmatic lookalike ad converts at about 2.82% of the time. We take that number, multiply that by $350 for the AOV to get what the estimated revenue could be. And then, of course, the ROAS projection is just revenue divided by spend to see how much we made. So this media plan is fairly good. We're estimating about a $3.57 return. Obviously, this can fluctuate. I always recommend that you optimize in real time based on performance that you're seeing and reallocate dollars as needed, as long as it's not a set IO. For instance, if you see that Meta CPCs are actually trending, let's say at $1.20, and we're driving efficient traffic and we're driving efficient ROAS, you may want to pull some dollars, let's say, out of TikTok for that month into Meta because it is performing much better than the benchmarks that you set. So it's really more of an art than a science, even when you're looking at the data, to be able to pay attention to when optimizations need to be made. And when is your data telling you that we are actually driving efficient traffic, we are actually driving efficient revenue, to make sure that you're still balancing out your media plan to drive just as much revenue as you are driving traffic, in this case for our objective.
And Chelsea, there's a question actually I would love for you to address, because Alan said, are these CPMs estimated or sourced from sales rep of each platform?
Yeah, so I answered the first part. The CPMs are estimated for the sake of this
Boom.
example. But
Yep.
let's say you wanted to reach out to a specific partner to be
Yep.
able to find that. This
Mhm.
is where forecasting comes into play. And Ellen
Mm,
is going to go into exactly how you would do that. So that was a great segue into our next section. Ellen, I'm going to
got
stop sharing so you can take over. But great segue, Ellen, and great question.
Excellent. And now I see your question. So hold on tight and then we'll go over this. Okay. So what does media forecasting is? I mean, I think Chelsea has explained it well enough, but it's supposed to be an estimate based on the estimate to accuracy delivery. Okay. It helps predict this result. It's prediction. And a good forecast should have a budget allocation. Okay, so it should be optimized everywhere. And she gave her recommendation 30-40% for conversion and things like that. So don't do 33.333%. I don't think that's a good start. You got to set realistic expectation and let the clients, the advertiser, the rest of the team know that, yo, this is an estimate. We're going to get started with it. This is why we have optimization at after the campaign is launched, and this is why we analyze. This is what we'll tell you in your first month reporting, is that based on this plan, this is how we perform and this is how we need to adjust ASAP. But doing this is going to help reduce what we call media wastage, which is, we know with everything happening in the industry, with all the things that are called MFAs or whatnot, like do brands really care? Really, it's up to you. This is your call to action to care, okay? To stand up, use your strong voice. I almost say your big girl's voice because I'm a toddler, big boys and big girl voice, and stand up and say, this is unclear to me. I don't think it gives us enough control. I can't see through this noise. I don't know if we should allocate any type of budget. So it's super, super important. And I think somebody else said that in the comments earlier, is that you can pull some level of forecast via your DSP. So whether you use AdLib, you can reach out to them and then they'll help you pull forecasting. In the Trade Desk, is called Estimated Reach and Frequency Tool, and DV360 is Inventory Availability Forecast, Extender, Roku, etc. You can pull some level of forecast, but again, the forecast is probably going to give you billions of IDs, millions of household things like that. It's just for you to know there are availabilities out here, not to copy paste that number into a plan, okay? Because the plan is all formula based on those research that Chelsea showed us how to do. And so consider this, okay? Consider this. All forecasts are not guaranteed. So again, that billion number, that million impression based number that you see after you enter it or input in your forecasting tool should give you an idea. It should indicate that it's available or not. And so it's all not guaranteed. So it's very important to understand. And also, media availability fluctuates. One day you'll go, and then Infolix will have a data segment that says we have X amount higher viewability available, X amount of impressions are available. And the very next day, it will be totally different. Okay, so it fluctuates not only on a day-to-day basis in some cases, but also, I mean, we know how Q4 can be for some retail media, but everybody else, Q1, like if it's holidays and not holidays during the summer. And so that can help fluctuate some of those availability as well. And then audience behavior changes. Like some days, we were all into unicorns 2 years ago. Now we're into dinosaurs and monster trucks. Don't ask me. It is what it is, right? So audience behavior shift. And so you cannot set it and forget it. Every single traders on this call can do this. It's probably doing this. You cannot set it and forget it. Once you estimate and you roll it into your campaign, you got to be able to optimize and adjust and sometimes change truly. Okay. So like I think this is DV360. This is what it kind of looks like. Like you'll enter the number and it'll spit out exactly impression. See, this is this 323 billion? This is a number I never had to pronounce before, so obviously I'm I'm struggling here. But it gives you so much data availability. Now, when it comes down to, I would say, a certain number, if it's like in the hundreds of thousands or the 10,000s impression wise, maybe the availability is lower because again, once you get it set up in your campaign, you'll layer the brand safety tool. Partners. You'll have to layer the creative. You'll have to layer all your targeting settings, including geo. Sometimes a specific exclusion list or a specific allow list, and so that reduces that number down to it. So if you're already starting with 100,000, you might be limited. And please drop in a comment if you agree or disagree with that. So here's the thing, and I'm sorry if I'm not breathing in between the slides here because I really want to get through some of this, at least the next few slides. And then if anybody can stay after the 30-minute mark, then stay. But if you're seeing the replay of this, don't worry, you'll have it in your email again, maybe 2-3 days, whatever it takes. So how do you select the right partner? There's two approaches. Like there's a planning team involved and there's an activation team on both sides. On my side as a trader, as the representative of the brand, and then on the partner side, like if I have to call Infolinks, like I know they have a planning team as well as an activation team, and I probably will be working with those two teams at some point. And then there's three core components: pricing, audience, and format. Okay. We've got to be able to negotiate the pricing. We got to be able to really tell them, this is what we're looking for. What can you do and how can you do it? And then the format here is I know somebody asked about creative, I think earlier. It goes all down to creative. It's like, are you doing the regular 300 by 250 display, which is also one of the higher performing size? Or can you give us something super interactive when they're on their cell phone? Can the ad can be not as disruptive and just be on the top, like in line with the screen or the website? And then lastly, I would say, again, you have to make sure it's the right inventory, and it has to offer a good value. Like and premium can be identified in many ways, like, but to me, a premium inventory is definitely something that brings value to my campaign, in a sense that I know it's going to be converted. I know that I'll be comfortable telling the client at the end of the day and showing them like, this is what we're targeting, and not showing them World Star and all stuff. No shade to World Star, folks. I'm just saying, like, sometimes you just don't want to target on these type of sites, right? And so how do you engage with the data partners? Shout out to our three sponsors again: Infolinks, Curated Media, and AdLib. I'll go ahead and show you what Curated Media tool looks like. Yo, it's super cool. Don't, please what? It's super cool. But there's two ways to reach out to those vendors. One, who can do it for me? Cost efficiency, okay? Who can do it for me so I don't got to do it? And two, who can offer me a tool that can allow me to play in? And so the next 2-3 slides, I'm going to show you what Infolinks can offer as an example of a data partner you should or can reach out to. And the first thing I would say is just, y'all, we got to start picking up the phone. Okay, or at least getting on the Zoom calls, or at least entertaining the conversation with these folks. They're here to help us really make our job as easy as possible. Like, I will never forget when Pandora they didn't push out of Trade Desk, but it became so expensive to target Pandora via the Trade Desk. And so at some point we went direct for that one campaign, and it performed tremendously. CPM dropped. You could see conversions, even though this was, again, an awareness channel. And you can literally test new creative that maybe at that time, again, this was 2018 or 19, I don't know. You could clearly see that they offered, like, when you went direct, they offered like the additional what was it, the background image. Now I think it's available everywhere, but there are benefit of going direct and there are benefit of doing it yourself. So choose wisely and please delegate. And so your initial outreach should include, first, set up the call and set right expectation and talk to these people, because on the buy side there's a full industry on the opposite side of the equation. They are called the supply side. They are called media owners. We need them in order to perform for our clients, period, point blank. Okay. Even though we fund the internet today, and I'm pulling off of Jeff Green mindset here, we still need to talk to these people and understand what they're doing, so that at the end of the day in the report, and you're complaining that MFA, IVT is up. Yes, but did you call them? Did you tell them this was the performance? Did you ask them for explanation? That's the type of feedback you should be given. So pick up the phone, be able to talk to them. Make sure that you give them clear expectation. Very often the agencies, like let's say if we have like a agency partner we work with, they'll be like, oh, we can tell you the brand right now, but we just need awareness. What? Oh, I'm gonna give you awareness. All right. It's gonna cost you 50 cents. You're gonna get you're gonna get those trillion billion impressions. But no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to be like that, right? Like we're better than this. And so let me just say this, like give them enough information because you're just gonna benefit from it, right? If it's awareness, give them everything from this is an example of I'm gonna give you awareness. They give them an example of okay, we would like to have the CPM around this, the impression base should be this, we have about this budget. Even if you give them a little lower than your budget allowed, give them some number because then they can do the same thing we do in their platform, their technology, and input like, all those numbers because don't complain. At the end of the day, you cannot complain that this is not performing because you did not do your due diligence to give them clear instructions of what is needed. Now, I would say, and this is in the testing and optimization phase, is that you can monitor everything in-house, allow them to monitor as well so they can do their work. Put them to work, guys. We do a lot as traders, as planners. Put your partners to work by allowing them to get some level of reporting where they can optimize on their back end and give us, what they think. Okay. So pick up the phone. And so shout out to Infolinks. And I'm sorry, I'm going through this fairly quickly. But there are, see, understand them as like their ad marketplace, like for premium. Okay, they have a high performing, viewable, sustainable format, video, display, native, and CTV. And they're really focused on supply path optimization. It is time for everyone to start thinking about sustainability, green media, and then supply path optimization. No longer are the days where we need to work with 1,005 partners, data partners. This is no longer applicable anymore. I think if you work with 20, no, I'm kidding. I think if you work with a select amount of partners, I really think you can maximize one, your efficiency at work, but also your performance. Now, there are cases, I think, like in pharma or in, I'm going to say retail, maybe, where you might need a little bit higher than those few partners, and that's okay. But it's time for you to understand my go-to for this type of inventory is Infolix because I know they are known for supply. Guys will not be invited to the next workshop, y'all. No, I'm kidding. And so what's unique about them is that, oh, I'm glad I added the the image about the cell phone, like sometime in top, in article, in fold. Like these are the type of things you want to hear from your partners and be like, okay, this brand wants highly viewable, highly attention, whatever, inventory. And now Infolinks can offer this because creatively, that's how they're built, right? And so there are other partners too, but this one is our sponsor, so you get to hear from them. You're welcome. And so another thing that's unique is that they have a real-time AI audience targeting. And I know the Infolinks team is on. So if you want to unmute and jump in, you feel free to unmute and jump in. But the biggest thing is that they're ranked top 5 by John's Media. And we've heard Chris Kane talk about them MFAs in the last 3 years. So you want to pay attention a little bit. And then they're also ranked highest green score by Scope 3. Now, I have to do my due diligence with learning more about green media, but I know at least that Scope 3 is known for green media. And what's the other one? They're UK based. Anyway, so you have to do your due diligence on that. And so every partners will come and give you this, right? We have audience access to automotive, business, education, career. Yeah, that's cute. But what else is unique? Now you understand that not only can they, okay, can they not? Can they? I don't know what it's not working anymore. But not only can you can understand that they are offering, here you go, guys, sorry. They are offering this to you. Oh, too bad. I guess it's not meant to be shown. So you guys are gonna have to do it this way. You're gonna be all right. So when to use it and when not to use it. Again, highest viewability, because I mean, I know most partners tell us that we have high viewability, but y'all, look at the creative that they can offer. Look at this inventory placement. Obviously, is going to be highly viewable. That makes sense. Like some partners out there all call it high viewable, but like you can tell, like, oh, this is actually going to be highly viewable or more viewable, I guess. Another thing I want to I wanted to explain the fact that they have a direct relationship with their publishers. You know, the previous slide said 25,000 or something. So that means that they have more control over brand safety. They know exactly what's going on their website and they help curate that, and they help their own publishers make sure that they fall within above the threshold. And when not to use it, again, if you want the cheap stuff, maybe infolinks ain't it. Not that they're particularly expensive, but if you're trying to aim for that trillion impression count, whatever, at 50 cents, maybe don't waste your time, do it somewhere else, right? I would say also that maybe the best, not the best way to use them would be um if you rely heavily on a specific type of audience versus like something that infolinks is offering. Like if you're working with infolinks and you don't see that the audience is in here, but you still ask them to perform it, maybe this ain't it. Don't set yourself up. Like you see that the audience that they offer are here, maybe select within it. And I would say before going to curated media, just remember, some of those partners can do the hard work for you. Please let them do the hard work for you. Okay. Allow them to do this work. You do so much. Send them like, yo, I have this type of campaign. Here's the strategy, just like Chelsea just taught us. What can you do for us? How can you make it better? What can you do? You have minimums? You not have minimums? Can you, if you have minimums, can we share some of this across, negotiate. Don't assume a no, go find it. Okay. And I think Infolinks is available. I don't think, I know for a fact that they're available in most DSPs. I've even used them in Trade Desk way back when. And so if they're already available, like it's easy to activate. Now our next sponsor is Curated Media, but let me just say, so the first thing we covered was don't almost like a managed service, right? Like you send it to your data partner, they send it back to you. They do the work and then you implement it or you deploy. Curated media is the second part, is that, oh, maybe I want to stay as agnostic as possible, let's say, and I want to look it up myself. Curated.media, it is free tools. Obviously, there's a paid, a gated dashboard, but just in the free tool, it is super dope. So we won't have time to go through all of them, but please check it out. It's curated.media, literally. A big thing that's happening right now in this industry is curated deals. What is it? How can we do it? How can we not do it? Well, here it is. Curated media is here to teach you and also make it as simple. So in the case of FitFlow Fitness, I looked it up and then I'm like, oh, these are all nice. And remember how it says the size is this? So like, yeah, maybe you want to go for a little bit higher size and then maybe test the lower size, right? But the cool thing about this is that once you go through some of this information, where's the next button? Oh, there it is. We can add the audience, and then based on that, that's when you can take this fancy screenshot and send it to the client, because clients like the graph, right? They like colors, and they can say like, oh, if you want video on this type of inventory, it will cost you 13 to 29 to 19, excuse me, 22 to 40 for CTV, $4 to $6. So when I heard you said, oh, those estimated CPM, this could be a research tool for you based on this specific audience segment, based on those categories. This is what we recommend, and blah blah blah. And take some time to go through some of these. Like the contextual is the same way, you can pull it up. Their CTV package is domain scoring. There's sensitive categories. Like right now I'm going through with one of our clients, they want pharma, but the other one only wants gambling. And I'm like, yo, what? What is happening? Why can't we do gambling in these streets? Apparently it's a big deal. And so this is where I came to see how much it would cost them to run display. And then I sent it to them and I told them, like, this is how you want to do it. And here's the next step. This is how easy it could literally be deployed everywhere, right? So AdLib is not on here because AdLib you have to run in a specific, like let's say Xender, you can run via AdLib, and then I'll ask you for your seat. Boom. And when you input this seat, this seat, you can literally deploy it after, and the next one it'll ask for your name and then your email to make sure that it actually went where it's supposed to go. So this tool is pretty cool. I mean, honestly, like I wish I had something like this way back when, to really help understand, like to just help us be so much more efficient and just step outside of maybe only depending on the DSP, which is still pretty good. Like you still need the DSP information and verify the verification. But it's nice to have the ability, especially in 2025, to reach out to other partners, whether it's direct like an Infolinks, or whether it's researching my own tools via curated media, which there are not a lot of them that offer this out here, just so you know. It's good to have this, and you can compare. But again, remember, pick up the phone when they call, when they're calling, respond to this email, whether you're in planning or not. Even as a trader, I like talking to them, because if they're already available in the DSP, it's easy to just turn on, turn off, right? Like I can add this segment and then test it. Okay. So I'm gonna pass it back to Chelsea really quick, so that she can talk to us about request for proposal. This was one of the many questions y'all ask, and I'm sorry we're running out of time, but this is literally a whole 90 minutes on its own. So you get one slide for now. And if you're interested in getting more on RFP, that's one of the workshops we'll have in our community that I'm going to announce in the next few slides, if you're still around. And so, Chelsea, tell us, like, what happened? Like, what is an RFP or RFI? I've heard, like, what is it? Girl, what is it?
Yes, 100%. This is one of the main questions I get asked all the time as well, especially having worked in the agency world for as long as I have. So you typically need to do a request for proposal, RFP, when there's a significant project or need that requires external expertise or services, and you want to be sure there's fair, transparent, and competitive bidding processes in the process, right? So for instance, if a client wants to place ads during the Oscars, let's just say, that's not something that normally regular agency partners have access to in terms of how much it's going to cost, how to bid, all of those things. So any complex projects where the scope is intricate, it requires specialized skills, maybe it involves multiple phases projects, you need multiple creative teams, a different bidding team, a different placement team, anything that's significant investment. So some of those bigger box activations that are going to cost $2 to $5 million, Super Bowl, for instance, is one of them that I'll often use an RFP for to request partners from, or any platforms that your company or yourself may not be familiar with. You can do an RFP to different partners that will then send back their capabilities to you, their bidding strategy, and all of those things that you just may not have access to on your own. If you don't have existing relationships, for instance, with some of these partners, like a lot of times you need to do an RFP to a partner if there are specific requirements that your vendors must meet. So there are just a bunch of different reasons. Most of the time it's when you yourself or your agency may not have access to the things that are needed to activate. If it's a really complex project, if there are multiple stakeholders involved, and perhaps you just don't have the capability to do it, which is okay. That is when an RFP is usually used. But it's oftentimes when you need additional information or partners to help you get a complex project or maybe a multi-million-dollar project over the finish line, and you need to follow certain compliance or governing guidelines, and you need innovative strategy and appropriate partners to be able to do so.
Okay, thank you so much. So in recap, there was a lot, right? It was a whole lot. I'm not going to go through all of this. You're going to get the deck after. I'm going to make sure to add those screenshots to give everybody shout out to that took the quizzes and the polls, and also so you can have bragging rights, but most of you will receive the Credly badge. So again, the whole purpose is that this is a team effort. Yes, there's a leader, like, right, that writes the recipe and do it. But like you should know that you have outstanding partners to help us do the job that we're supposed to do. So next we're going to go over the Q&A. But before we get into the Q&A, I just wanted to let you know that I'm starting something. So obviously you showed up today because, first of all, you're a badass. Shout out to you. Nobody else outside of those 100 that signed up, and then the 38, I think that was here. And then now we're at this time because, well, you guys are the goats. Nobody else did that. Today, you got to learn a little bit more. You're investing in yourself, and then you're going to be better. You're also here because most likely you're one of the only one in your office or in your department that have some programmatic experience. You're limited in your learning journey. One of the reasons why I started my podcast a couple years ago is because my manager kept saying like, "Oh, you don't need to know this stuff. You don't need to know this stuff. Oh, you just," basically he was telling me like, "Stop getting more intelligent. Like that's not part of your job description." And I was like, "Oh, hell no, to the no, no, no." And so I started a podcast. I started like reaching out to people on LinkedIn, and here we are. And so no to micromanagers. And maybe you've just landed a job, or you on your path to your next job opportunity. And so you're looking to continue learning effectively. Like we have a young lady that just joined the program and the community, and she literally was like, I have all this experience, but this role is a little bit more focused on programmatic. Which, how many times have you joined like a job and then you realize like, oh shucks, this is a bit different than the job description, right? I know you can relate. And so in this situation, I need you to know that there is a community for you. That's why I'm starting it, or I'm taking it to the next level. I'm closing the doors and making it paid. But hang on, because I have something for you, okay? And I wish I had this community way back when, because I was blessed to have outstanding people at the beginning of my career, when I used to work way back when for this small Virginia Beach agency, and they've been friends with me all this time. Matter of fact, one of them is in the chat. Shout out to Tasha. But like it's thanks to them that I am in the position that I am. So now I would love to offer it to you. I'm starting an executive membership. Who's this training for? Everybody that's on the call, basically, and your friends can come. Welcome to the party. Oh, here's Shamsi. So Shamsi's story is she reached out to me a month ago and she was like, "Yo, my manager is asking me to build this audience in the DSP. I've done it, but like it looks so different. Can you just help me out?" Obviously, I could not just help her right away. So I went through some of my past training that I've done. And then I sent her like it was a 10 minutes video, and I'm literally walking her through how to build it in, I think it's the Trade Desk for the video. And she looked at it and she's doing it in her DSP, and she was like, "Yo, this is so helpful." And then she sent this super sweet message. And like sometimes like you just need a little reaffirm, like an affirmation that you're still working within your mission, you're working within your superpower. You just got to keep going and believe in yourself, right? And so I just wanted to share. And so now I'm doing it for you, and I'm inviting you to join. In the executive membership, you'll be able to have a programmatic power hour. This is basically what we're doing now. This I consider a programmatic power hour, where we have a theme or topic. I invite experts like Chelsea, or you've had expert like Aisha in the past, where I invite them and then we learn together and then we actually talk about it. We'll have optimization bootcamp. Optimization bootcamp is still the number one requested training from everybody, whether it's on my YouTube, whether it's in my newsletter, whether it's in my podcast, whether it's in my LinkedIn. My LinkedIn stay popping. I still receive like, how do you optimize this? How do you optimize based on a CTR? And so there will be a dedicated workshop just for optimization. And please know that that workshop will be, it will be in Excel. I'll pull a few DSP report, and then we're gonna dive, we're gonna get our hands dirty together. And then the last thing I would say is gets me super excited is this town hall hour AMA, which is Ask Me Anything, in a co-working space. So when I was in an entrepreneurship group, every Wednesday at 3 p.m., you will join into the Zoom call. Nobody would talk. It will be like dead quiet. It will be a couple, selling coach, marketing coach on, and you will focus on this one thing you were supposed to focus on, but you haven't had a chance to focus on. Okay, how many of us have that? You block your calendar, but you don't actually do it. And so this is a time where you focus on this one thing together as a community. And if a question pops up, myself as a coach, or I'll have other expert on the Zoom doing their own work, you can comment and then we can break out into something like a one-on-one. And this has been so helpful. And so I want to do it in Programmatic. Why don't we have more of this? Like as a town hall, let's all, especially if you work from home, you don't get to have other people working next. Well, I do. Mine is a pit bull husky who is very vocal. The other one is 2 years old. The other one is 5. I do have coworkers, but y'all know what I mean, right? I love them, but I like y'all too. So why not have this hour? And this one actually is going to be on a weekly basis. The other two might be once a month or twice a month, depending on what you need. And then I'm offering a bonus where you'll access the course and then you'll have a monthly one-on-one coaching with me. And usually when I charge for each separately, these are the pricing. Yes. Ideally, I'd love to have 10 clients like this that can pay me at this price point, and maybe eventually I'll buy an island. I don't know. I don't think it's enough anyway. But because I love you and I don't think I want to make sure you're able to really get out of this, you get it for $199 a month. But don't go too far. This is the price I'm going to start advertising on these streets, on the LinkedIn streets and the YouTube streets on Monday. You have a couple days to lock in at this price, $79.60. The 60 cents, don't listen. I could have given it for free, but I know how to do it in Stripe and it's a code. So with the coupon code planning workshop, I don't think it matters if it's bolded or lowercase. With that coupon code, you're able to lock in at $79.60 for the rest of whatever you do. And it's a monthly, so you can you can cancel anytime. But there's also other options where you're able to lock in, there it is, like at the 3 month and then the yearly, and the 60% is still going to work at this price point. I made sure of that, and I can wait, what was the planning workshop? Don't judge me, y'all. Don't judge me. Oh, there it is. Okay, so you get, wait a minute. I didn't do my math right, y'all. But you know what? It's on the recording. I'm gonna own it. So whatever it is, whatever it is, like you get the whole thing for an hour. Because let me tell you what, this is the last workshop I will be doing for a very, very long time, or if any this year. Yes, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Like there's a lot going on. I want to commit more to the community, the people in the community right now, and so I invite them to join them. And this is your pricing. So again, this is it. This is the end of the road. I will be sending everything to y'all. And I actually see that a couple people sign up. I can't tell from, I see the notification. So I'm super excited about that. So I'll send y'all a little something. Here is some housekeeping. Thank you to Infolinks. Thank you to Curated Media. Thank you to Addit for sponsoring this. Please be on the lookout the email, because Infolinks literally really wants to give you that mug. And it's a Yeti, and it's very, very nice because I had one, which was now stolen by my oldest sister. So I need mine back. So I'm gonna request for another one. So make sure you look out. And then if you want to do more of these workshops, I'm giving you an opportunity to do it a little bit more with more customization. Okay. And I will make sure to send some eggs to Chelsea as well. That was not part of the offer, but I can do it as a bonus if you sign up. I'm sure you can. Chelsea, thank you. Thank you so much for being here again. I really adore every single people that showed up today. You made this happen. If there's any last question, I'm happy to answer it right now. But I know I've spent a lot of time with y'all, so I want to honor your time. So if you have to drop, I get it. But any last questions? Going once, going twice, and everybody's out. Okay, thank you so much. Remember to step away from your computer. Go do some jumping jacks. Go get some sun on your skin. If you're healthy and able and well enough to do it, please move your body and feed your soul, hydrate, and let's all mind our business after that. But thank you so much. You will hear from me in email, so please make sure to look out for that survey. And please, Infolinks wants to give you a little goodie, so why not? Okay, you can regift it if you have to, but you won't, because it's a pretty dope and it fits perfectly in your car. Okay, the people dropping off and picking up kids every day. But thank you so much, Chelsea. I see you on the flip side, which is basically any time now. We've been talking a lot. Thank you everyone for joining, and then I'll see y'all later. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.